This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to All Have Another podcast with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host, Lindsay. Thank you for being here today. Hope you're having a great day, and I'm excited to share that my guest on the podcast today is Emily Infeld. We all love Emily. She is a regular here on All Have Another podcast. My favorite story about Emily is that in 2016, when I started this podcast, I was just like, maybe I can get some professional athletes to come on the show. And she was one of the very first pros to say yes. And so it's been really cool because I feel like as I've come along in this podcasting career, I've been able to come alongside Emily and watch what she's been doing and cheer her on along the way and see her grow and mature and do all kinds of amazing things in the sport and really be a real advocate for mental health and so many other great things. Emily is one of the most real, authentic people that I know in this sport, and I'm excited to share this conversation. She's a 2015 World Silver Medalist in the 10,000 meters on the track. She is a 2018 silver medalist in U.S. cross country championships. She has represented Team USA 6 times. She competed in the 2016 Rio Olympics, and she was sponsored by Nike for a really long time and just recently announced that she will be joining the Brooks running team. Emily is one of those people that is so easy to talk to, so kind, so genuine. You feel it in the interview, and it's the real deal. So please enjoy my conversation with the wonderful Emily Infeld. All right, Emily Infeld, it's been a couple years. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. Great to see you and excited to chat.
I love talking to you. I was just, I literally just hung up on a call on the Relay podcast, and it was Peter Bromka and Tommy Runs and I know Peter's like a big Emily fan, so we were talking about you a little bit over there.
Oh, I'm a big Peter fan. He's the best. Just a great person.
Well, so when I asked you to come on the show, like I didn't know you were about to sign with Brooks, and then I saw your announcement the next day, and I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Like, we have something exciting to talk about.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny. I was like, I feel like I was trying so hard to keep it a secret. And then I've been at Dunaway Track in my Brooks stuff, and I've seen a couple people who've talked to me about it. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, if this is a secret, don't say anything yet. So I didn't know if you knew about it. But then I'm like, when you emailed me right after, I was like, oh, it's serendipitous.
It really was. No, I truly had no idea. But that's really exciting. Yeah. Tell us about that a little bit. Let's just start there.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. I feel like they're a great brand and everyone's just so kind. We were just in San Diego. It was really fun, like a great way to start my time with the brand, to just have kind of like an offsite with some of the other athletes. It was the athletes that aren't in, I think Garrett called us the Mavericks. It's like the athletes that aren't on the Beasts or with the Hansons. So it's like a collection of mostly like marathoner road athletes, but I'm like, they all dabble in the track too. I'm like, everyone's so talented. So it was just really fun. I'm like, I knew some of them, like I knew of everyone, but I hadn't met everyone before in person. So it was just a really great way to connect, get some content, and then just kind of share the excitement around, I'm like the team and me being part of it. I was really, really excited and grateful.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah. You were with Nike forever.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that relationship, like moving on from that, all that was smooth and everything?
Yeah. I think it's like, it's always hard. It's kind of like a breakup. Like it's not like, I'm so grateful for my time there and I'm really appreciative. Like, they sponsored me for over 12 years. Like I signed like fall of 2012 and I'm so grateful for that. And but it's hard. I'm like, even though I'm so excited for Brooks, it's still like, I don't know. It's always like a little bittersweet, but no bad blood or anything. And like my husband still works there. And I have a lot of friends that are there. But I'm just really excited. And I think for this next chapter in my career, I'm just really excited to be with Brooks, and I'm just feel really supported by them and excited to tackle some goals on the track and then kind of move to the roads and try to tackle some goals there. So it's all good stuff.
What are the road goals?
Oh man, I mean, they've changed. It's so funny. I feel like this fall I was really anti-track and I'm like, I want to do the marathon. I want to do I was like, this spring is probably too soon, but I want to do a half and then like maybe a marathon in the fall. And then I started working with my college coach just very recently, and he is so wonderful and such an amazing coach and just a great person. But I sent him a bunch of my workouts and he's like, he's so inspiring and always makes me feel good. But he's like, I just think you have so much potential still on the track. He's like, I don't want you to feel like you need to force yourself to the roads. He's like, I think we can do some roads too. But he's like, looking at your training, I just really feel like you can, like, if you still want to do 5K, 10K, I think we have room for you to get some PRs, which to me, I'm like, oh gosh, like I feel like I still have unfinished business. And it's like, I would love to make a team and love to be competing on the world stage, but it's so hard. And I'm so cognizant of how talented the women are. But I'm also like, you know what? I still feel like I can get more out of myself, whatever that looks like. And I think it can only benefit my training in longer distances well. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So let's do some track stuff and then we can do some road stuff. But that might push off my wanting to marathon, but I still really want to. I feel like I'm doing lots of double workouts, like double threshold stuff. And I think that'll hopefully help my half marathon and then could translate to a marathon at some point.
Wow. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, back in the day when you were first on the podcast, I remember I always think like, when are these track women going to move up to the marathon? And I knew then like it was like so far away. Like I knew that like you weren't going to be doing that anytime soon.
Yeah.
And hearing you say like, oh, I signed with Nike in 2012. And then what your medal at the World Champs was what, 2015? It's like
2015.
How is it 2025?
I
What's
know.
going on? What's happening here?
I feel like I also just like those COVID years are just like lost to me. Like I feel like I'm like, can I get those back? Like I think I get to like subtract that from like my age and like like everything. I'm like, I feel like those were just lost years.
Yes, lost years, totally. Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's really exciting. Like I didn't know that you were thinking about the marathon.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. I've done, and I feel like I was saying this, I was chatting with Sarah with Runner's World, and I mean, I'm recalling some long runs I did in like 2016, 2017. And I'm like, I feel like I love running, and I like got into running with road racing stuff like with my dad over the summer, but I love the track. I'm like, I've loved the track for a while, but I still feel like I have room on the roads, but also the marathon is so hard. Like it's just so fast for so long. So I'm also like, I want to do the marathon, but I'm not out here being like, I'm going to run 2:22, my first one.
Yeah.
I'm like very realistic that like that's an incredible time. Like, yes, that would be amazing to run, but that's so fast. I was talking to Erica Kemp and I'm like, how did you run that fast for so long? I'm like, that's so fast for so long. Like it's wild. And
she's such a good example though, because she ran that 11-minute PR. Like she's been hammering for a while. Like that took some time.
Yes. And I mean, I also think that's what's cool. I don't know about our sport. It's like all that work pays off. You don't always see it right away, but it's like, she's done work for years and years and years. And even she had like a way less than perfect build leading into Houston. But I'm like, she's so strong from all those years. And it's like, you don't always get to showcase your work. And I think that's what I'm like, it all accumulates and builds and it'll show at some point. But we always want it to show every race. You want to be like, I'm working hard. Like I want to like knock every race out of the park. But I'm like, you just sometimes the body's going to do what it's going to do. And it won't always do that every race. But I think if you keep trying and going for it, it's going to happen at some point. So I was really stoked for her.
Yeah. It's so good to know too, because we don't always know, right? Like when Erica has run like 2:31 in the past and all these other marathons, it's like, well, you don't know what was really in there. Like that's what we see. We see her result, but like she might have known like, no, I was fit for 2:26 or whatever it was.
Yes.
So it was so cool that she got to showcase that.
Totally. And because the marathon, there's so many factors, I feel like I'm like fueling, nutrition is such a big piece, like the conditions of the race. Like I just think there's so much that goes into it. And I'm like, if you get your fueling a little wrong and it's like, maybe that like costs you the last 4 miles, but if like, it's a long way. So if those last 4 miles are like, you start to really struggle, it's like that could sink your race and you could lose minutes. So it's just so, I don't know. I'm excited to try one, but I'm also like very, I just like, it's a crazy distance and event. And I'm, just like in awe of it. So I'm like, well, we'll see. I want to work hard and see where it'll put me, but I'm not acting like I'm going to go crush it right away.
You respect.
I respect it. That's the word I was looking for.
It.
Yes,
That's
very
right.
much respect the distance.
Okay, so you bought a house in Portland.
Yes.
So like this is your life, and your husband works at Nike, works there. So like you're living in Portland, you're staying in Portland.
Yes. So staying in Portland, working with my coach remote. And I mean, it's also kind of crazy because he was like, what were we doing? We were here like in June before the trials looking at houses because we knew we were moving back. Like, why were we doing that? And I was like, I think I just at that point, I was like 50% healthy and 50% fit that I was like, I was so focused on the trials, but I was also like, I need a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I like was just, I feel like we were in such a daze. And he was like, what were we doing? That was so crazy. And I was like, yeah, that was crazy. But I just also, my last year was crazy that I was like still in a daze and just like, I was like, whatever, I don't know what it is. So it feels really nice to be settled and feel like hopefully we won't move for a while.
I think we do that to ourselves, right? Our brains do that when like we want to put our eggs in this one basket, but like we know maybe we're not totally can't physically all be there. So we're like, what else can I add to my plate now so that it doesn't feel so heavy over here?
Yes, 1000%. Yeah. Not that it makes it any easier when it doesn't go well, but at least it's like, I don't know. I feel like I needed some sort of distraction.
So let me just buy a house, like let me go house. Because moving too is like, so did you move before or after the trials?
Right after.
Okay.
But we did, I like realized this, which is so wild because I remember I was warming up with Carissa and I'm like on the warm up. I was like, we just put an offer on a house this morning. Like before the final. And then she was like, she's also, I mean, her and Elise, everyone's so wonderful, but I was like, so whatever, bummed about my race, but so happy for them. And I was like, went over to be like, I'm so proud of you guys, like blah, blah, whatever. And they were just like so kind, being like, how are you? And then they're like, did you get the house? And I was like,
see, there is more to it.
I know, but I'm just like, oh my God, but we did not get the house. And I was like, no, we didn't get it. And they were like, oh no.
We wanted something good to come of this.
But it's okay. We got a better one. It's great. But it's just so funny to me. And I'm just like, oh man, it makes me feel like there's so many great people in this sport. Like I was trying to be like, I'm so proud of you guys. They both didn't have perfect years or builds. So I'm like, it was just so nice to see them run so well and so deserved. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, you guys are the best. You're asking me about me when I'm trying to say congrats to you. And then like, just how kind everyone is.
Okay, so I don't know how much you've talked about this post trials though. Like it was rough getting there and like you knew that you weren't like in the shape you necessarily wanted to be in. Have you talked about that much post trials?
I mean, with my husband.
Yeah.
I'm like,
he's heard it a time or two.
Yeah, I feel like we've recounted a lot. And even like I realized just a lot of things, but like we moved we went the last week in August to go look at places in LA, came back to Portland for a week, moved to LA, we're in temp housing for 10 days, got our apartment, moved in for 10 days. I went to Crested Butte for 3 weeks. Then I went to Santiago, Chile for a week. I went back to LA for 10 days, went back to Boulder for 2 weeks. I was in LA for 3 weeks. I went to Scottsdale for 2 weeks, back to LA for a week, went to New York to race, went to Boulder for 3 weeks. And then I came down, tried to race the 10, dropped out. And then I just was done after that. So, and I was looking and I said this to Coach Milton. He's like, what? Like, no wonder you were. And then we found out in April, we're going to have to move back to Portland. I just was last year was just I was just on edge almost the whole year. It was just so stressful. And just knowing we had to move in an Olympic year. And I was already I don't know. It was tough. So I'm it is what it is. And I also just don't, I'm looking back, I'm oh man, I feel like my training wasn't great. It was just, different. We were doing a lot of heart rate based training and I just I've never done that kind of stuff. I feel like lactate is helpful, but heart rate's just so hard because it's so variable. And looking at where I was oh my God, I was in and out of altitude. I was traveling constantly. I just don't think it was a reliable metric. And it was just I don't feel like I was super fit. And then my Achilles started bugging me, but then it was like we didn't have time, and I like didn't have any qualifiers for the trials. So I was like, at this point, I don't have time to kind of focus on my Achilles. It was like, let's try to get me a qualifier. And then I'm going into these races and I'm like dropping out of almost every single one. And like then getting to the trials, and I'm like, at that point, I'm like half training, my Achilles is messed up, and I'm like, maybe I can will it. And it's like, no. Like, I think even if you're 50% healthy and and 100% fit, I think it's tough. I think if I was 100% healthy and 50% fit, it would have looked a little better, but it still wouldn't have been great. Like, these women are incredible. Like, if I can't compete with them if I'm not at full health, or like, so I'm like, that's why I just got completely toasted in the final. And it was kind of like, I was a little pretty embarrassed that I was like, oh my God, that was awful. But I also was like, I kind of knew going in, I had a little bit of like false hope from the prelim. And then I was just, my Achilles was so bad after that. And I think regardless, I wasn't that fit. So I'm like, it was what it was.
Yeah. What were you guys moving to LA for?
His job.
Okay. So he was still with Nike.
He got a new job with Nike right before USA's in 2023. And I was like, I can't move until after. So I was like, we have to hold off. So he waited to move until he was like, I want to wait till her season is done. But I had a bad ankle roll in St. Moritz. And then I had another bad ankle roll right after USA. So we were like waiting to move. And then I didn't even end up racing after USA's anyway. So it didn't totally matter. But then they went through a reorg, so we moved and we were there for 10 months, and then they
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like we moved in September. We sold our Portland place in December, and then in April they told us that we had to move back. And Max was like, I have to wait until July. Like we're gonna go after the trials. So that's what we did.
It sounds like you were traveling for a lot of it, but like, did you enjoy living in LA?
I loved where we lived, but it's funny because like I didn't really feel like I was there. And then when I was there, like in April and May, my Achilles was hurt, and I was so stressed about like getting standards that I'm like, I feel like at that point it wasn't that enjoyable. Yeah. So it was just weird. It feels like a blip. And my mom called it my study abroad year. But it's a bummer. We have had great friends that were on our street. There were so many pieces of it that I loved, but I was like there and in Boulder the same amount of time last year. I was like in Colorado for like 4.5 months, and I was in LA for 10 months. So it was, not really like, it's hard to kind of feel settled in a place when you're like only there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Hey friends, big news from longtime sponsor Previnex. They've got a new Gut and Green superfood product, which is packed with organic greens, clinically studied gut health ingredients, and a clinically studied anti-aging ingredient that supports digestion, immunity, longevity, natural energy, and overall health. You take 1 scoop with 8 fluid ounces of cold water once a day. And when I tell you this is the best tasting superfood green product I've ever had, I'm not kidding. They have an apple flavor to it that makes it so much more delicious than the typical gut green products you've maybe had in the past. Not only is it great tasting, it's made without any junk. No gums, no sugar alcohols, or artificial anything. The thing about Previnex is they care so much about the quality of their ingredients, and more than anything at all, they care about bringing health to your life. So if you want to check out their Gut Green product, I highly recommend it. I take it every morning now before my coffee. So I know you've heard me talk about Previnex for years. They've got the creatine, the muscle health, the multivitamin, the joint health, all kinds of good products. So if you want to try this product and you've already used my other codes, as long as you have the Gut and Green Superfood in your cart, you can use the code Lindsay Superfoods. That's LINDSEY Superfoods for 15% off your order. You can add whatever else you want in the cart, but as long as the Gut and Green Superfoods is in there, use the code Lindsay Superfoods, and that will get you 15% off. All right, I'm super excited to hear what you think. I am fully on board with this, and I look forward to growing in health with you and with Previnex as the years go on. Yeah. Okay. So tell us where Team Boss fits in that timeline. Like when you were training with them, like when did you leave the group? And when you were in Colorado during that time, you were training with them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I left the group really after I dropped out of PTF. So that was 10 days before the trials. I just was like, at this point, I was having a really hard time. I felt like I just felt like for me, I realized it wasn't sustainable to be with a group in Colorado. I was like, I just think this year made me realize I tried so hard to be with the group. And I think there are wonderful people in that group. So I was like, I'm going to try to go train with them. And I just was like, this isn't sustainable. We don't live here. Like, I can't do this again. Like, that was kind of like even if my Achilles had been healthy, I was like, the last 2 years going back and forth was just so exhausting. And I was like, I need to just be in one place. And I'm like, everyone there is wonderful. Like, there's no like bad blood with, again, like the people are so great. And I'm like, it just was not the right situation for me. Like, I just, and Emma's so kind and Joe is very kind. It just is like, it's tough. And I'm like, if I was in Boulder, I think it could have been different, but just wasn't. And I just didn't perform well. So I'm like, I had 2 years where I really didn't run well. And I feel like I was traveling a ton, and not to say it's all correlated, but I also am like a routine girl and I have a hard time being away from my husband. And like, I'm like, after we were like on the go for 2 years, I was like, I need to be in one place.
Well, yeah, I mean, life as a professional runner, like you travel so much anyway, let alone if you're not like staying in the same place for the majority of the year when you're not traveling for work.
Yeah. And then we're trying to go see family and like the holiday time and stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, I like can't.
Never not on a plane.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, I just can't, like, I'm not, I would like, I mean, Max is so good and go with the flow. And I am like, definitely not. I'm like way more neurotic and just, I'm like, I want to be in my bed for a month. Like, I just want to feel like I'm here for a month in my own bed, in my house, like with our cat, watching TV. Like, that sounds so nice.
Well, and there's something to be said for like making your house a home. And like, you can't really do that if you're only there for like a week at a time here and there.
Yeah. Totally.
You're never like settling into the space. Like, do you want to decorate or like do anything like that?
Yes. Yeah, literally. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's just way more chill. Like, he's like, could be totally fine with that. And I'm like, I realized that's not me.
Yeah, that's not me. Let's talk about his 5K day because.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so many people I know do like the daily mile. Like, I'm doing my mile a day no matter what. I've always been like, I can't do that because like, I don't want to run every day.
Yeah.
But a mile a day, I'm like, okay, I could do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can stomach that. But like, has he not had the stomach flu? Like, how does he do it when he's sick? Because a 5K is like, you know, you got to actually move for about 30 minutes.
Yes, I know. Well, and it's like, I'm like, it's so impressive because I'm also like, this last 2 months, he's been running 80 miles a week. Like, I'm like, and he's doing my stuff with me. So like, we have double workout day Friday and some Tuesdays. So Friday, I'll normally do it on my own in the treadmill, and then same with Tuesday, but then we'll do the evening together Friday, Tuesday, but he'll go do the workout in the morning. Like, he'll wake up at 5:30 to go do it before work. And then we'll do the second one, which will be nicer now the sun's setting at like after 5. But like when the sun was setting at 4:30, we're like going in the dark. But I'm like, he's doing like a full work day and doing this. Whereas I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much. And then I'm like, wait, he's like working as well as doing this. It's wild. But I mean, he's so funny. He has a couple times said things to me that have really pissed me off. Like, he's like, injuries are in the mind. And I'm like, no, like, that's not true. You're just lucky. I don't know how you haven't gotten injured, but like, whatever. And like, he says that kind of stuff, which I'm like, now I just roll my eyes at him because I'm like, I love you, but this is
not true.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm like, I love you so much, but I like hate when you say stuff like that.
That's so funny because I have had this like nagging Achilles thing for a long time too. And then I like took like 10 weeks off, and my husband would always be like, well, like, could you run though? Like, are you just like not? And I'm like, well, I mean, I could, but then I'd be taking like 2 steps back.
Yes.
And he like thinks that I'm like over like making it more of an issue than it is.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, it's not that much of an issue yet, but like, I don't want it to be more of an issue.
Yes.
And he's just a lucky guy. Like, he runs every day and he just never gets injured. Like, it's just.
Yeah, that's
Genetics, man.
That's what I think. I'm like, I feel like it's so different, but I'm also like, Max is a swimmer his whole life. And I remember like when I'm working with John Ball, I was like showing him videos of us running together, and he's like zooming in on Max and he's like, wow, look at that core strength. Like if only you had that. And I'm like, well, I'm like, he's a dude who is swimming
going
his whole
back
life.
from like 10 years old. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, literally he said, I mean, again, this is, I think, an exaggeration, but he said he won his first swim race at 2. And I was like, what? I was like, race. I think this is made up, or maybe it was 3, but I don't know. His mom said this as well. So I have like, they corroborated, but I think that he was able to like go across the pool. But I was like, what? I was like,
well,
how?
like in summer swim, the 6 and under kids just do like half the length.
Oh, okay.
And like my kids did 6 and unders. They didn't start till they were like 5.
Yeah.
They were 2.
Yeah.
But like if your 2-year-old could swim, you could put them in the 6 and unders and they just
go.
Yeah.
What?
I like probably. I mean, I don't
Okay.
have any kids that could swim at 2. My youngest swam when he was like almost 4, but he was like barely swimming. Like
I feel like I did like the blowing bubbles class when I was like 7. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, no, we would have been like that. And when we lived in Indiana, we moved to North Carolina, and swim culture here is like wild.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we just had lived at the pool in the summer. So my youngest was still almost 3 when we moved here. And he just, because of that, he started swimming way younger than the rest of them.
Well, that's, because Max is from Atlanta. So I feel like it's similar.
Like
it's like what you do when you're there.
Yeah. So did he swim in college?
Yeah. He swam at Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay. That is like the hardest sport.
Yeah, I know.
Like, does he still swim?
No, like I feel like rarely, but I was telling this story because I was saying something how I like to swim when I don't have to swim. Like I like to do a flush every once in a while, which means like once a month, maybe I'll do like 20 or 30 minutes, or like whatever. If I'm not injured, it's way nicer to not be like in the pool. But when I was injured at some point in swimming every day, Max got like, I was like, I also am like, I'm so bad. I'm breathing so hard. I'm so focused on what I'm doing. I like swim until I get a headache because I like don't think I fully exhale, inhale. Like I just don't, I'm not a great swimmer. I'm getting good cardio, whatever. But he like jumped in the lane without me realizing and is just like on his back. So like looking up at me underneath me, just underwater doing some like dolphin kick. And I was like so mad because I was like, what are you doing? And then he's like making me laugh. And he just looked like a mermaid underneath me. And I was like, what in the world? And then we both get up on the other side and the lifeguard's waiting for us because he thinks this is like some strange man that just like is harassing me in the pool. And I was like, oh no, this is my husband. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
He's a big weirdo.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Does he give you like pointers? Like, does he teach you how to swim?
No, I mean, he gave me a little bit. I mean, his biggest thing is spoons, not forks, because I used to just swim like this. So now I like try to do this. So that one. And then I feel like he gave me a couple drills for like, I don't know, keeping more streamline or something. Yeah. But then he tried to help me flip turn. And that was when I realized I'm like, I don't want any more coaching tips. We got into like an argument. We were at the pool in Atlanta and his dad was there. And I was like getting so mad at him because Max was like, just do it. Like, I don't understand how you can't do it. Like all you do is do this. And I was like, I don't think that you can teach me anything anymore. Just let me be. I'm just going to not flip turn.
I'm just going to touch the side. I always feel really fancy when I flip turn.
Yeah. I'm impressed you can. I always just get water at my nose.
I mean, I'm not good at it. Like, it's like real ugly. It's like real sloppy, but I can do it. I don't like to though, because I want a break. Like, even if that break is just like one more bigger breath and touching the side and pushing off. Like,
that's what I think.
Want that.
Same. I need that too. I'm like, I feel like we have good aerobic capacity as runners, but there's just something different. I like can't fully exhale or something. So I'm like, I just need tiny breaths constantly.
I also don't know how to fully use my core. Like I know how important it is, but like in swimming, like I know I'm not utilizing it the way I should. And I would be so much more efficient if I did. And I've never like been willing to like figure it out.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm like, I make all these excuses, but I'm like, I'm so much more bottom heavy. I'm like, that's what our legs are so much more muscular. So what are we supposed to do? I'm like, I just think that we can't.
Listen, we've seen those shoulders on you, Max.
Yes, yeah.
We know. We know that you have a strong upper body.
I know. He's built like a Dorito. And I'm like,
but
I'm built like
how much of that is how he's built versus what he did for 20 years.
Yeah, that's actually
Do you
so
know?
true. Yeah, like I wonder what he would look like if he ran instead of swimming or something.
Yeah, like because at some point, like you've like trained your body up, but then some, your shoulders are the way they are in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. But yeah, because some kids you can look at them and you'd be like, oh, those are some swimmer shoulders, you know?
Yes. Yeah. That's what he said. He said he was scouted at the pool when he was like 7 and someone was like, "Oh yeah, he's
Yeah,
going
I
to be a
see
good
what
swimmer."
we can do with that.
Yeah.
But okay, what about when he's sick? Like, how does he run a 5K day?
I mean, he honestly hasn't been that
Doesn't get sick a lot.
I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like COVID, we both got COVID after USA's in 2022, and that was probably the sickest he'd been. But he just went outside and
Just
slogged
chugged.
his 5K. Like
Yeah,
he
just
ran like
slogged
10-minute pace.
Yeah.
And it was like 5 days that he felt really bad, and then he was fine.
And if you're used to running 80-mile weeks and then you go slog 3 10-minute miles, like
Yes.
it might actually be better, like
Yeah.
in your healing process because you're like getting the fresh air.
Yes, totally. That's what, so I'm like, outside of that, I'm like, he's had like maybe like a little cold or something but nothing that bad to like take him out.
Man. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Like
Goals.
lucky.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So what else is going on? What else is new in your life since the trials and buying a house? And what do you need to tell us?
Yeah. I mean, I'm working with my college coach. I feel like I might have said that quickly
Well, you
earlier.
just mentioned his name. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Chris Miltenberg, so he's at UNC now. I'm working with him remotely, which has been really good. I'm like, it's been really great. He has been like a mentor to me, I think, pretty much since college. Yeah. So I'm like, that's been really great. We've kept in good contact and it's nice. I feel like working with someone who I've known for a long time, who I trust, who trusts me. He's definitely changed his coaching style since college. But I think that's good. Like, I feel like I feel like we collaborate also, which is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I give him feedback and I'm like, I just think that to me, it's nice to have that relationship where it's like, I can be honest and feel like he's like receptive to it and we're learning because it still is. I'm like, we have talked a lot since college, but we haven't worked together since then. So I graduated in 2012. So like that was a long time ago. So I feel like it's nice. It feels comfortable and just, he's a great human. Like he's like, him and his family are just so wonderful. So I feel really lucky to be working with him and just excited.
How did that work out? Like when you decided to move on from Team Boss, were you coach shopping or had you already been in contact and you were just like, hey, do you want to do this or what?
Yeah, so I was talking with him. I mean, I feel like I talked to him after the trials and kind of filled him in on stuff and just kind of the last couple years. But he also, I mean, he's a full-time job and he has 4 kids. So like, I feel like I've talked to him kind of like over the years and when I left Bowerman and just like figuring out things. But I'm like, he's so busy and I really appreciate that he's like, I had talked to him initially after the trials and he's like, I feel like I could help you, but like, I also don't want to say that yet because I don't want to overcommit. And I'm like, yes, I totally get that. So I was working with 2 sports physiologists at Nike this fall, like honestly, since the trials, like this summer, fall, and just really, I told them, I was like, I want to do the marathon. So we were focused more on like recovering from Achilles. Like I got PRP, I had to take a few weeks off of running and then like steadily building and working with my PT kind of on just getting stronger, all that stuff before getting into running. And it was fun. I feel like it was cool. We did a lot of testing. I did heart rate testing, which I had never done. I did VO2 max testing. So I'm like, just to get those numbers was really cool. And again, I'm like, I don't know if I'm like someone who's going to use all those metrics, but I think just to get a baseline of like, this is where you're at. Like I literally did it when I'd been running every other day. My first test, I was like, this is my baseline off of like really 2 months of not running. And then now I'm running like 20 miles a week. So like, let's see where I am doing this testing stuff and trying to get down to like 5-minute pace. And I was like, oh my God, this feels awful. I'm like so all out. But then we like did a 5-week training cycle and I did it again. And I was like, oh, it was like really cool to see the jump, like my VO2 jump, my lactate zones moving, like my heart rate stuff just from 5 weeks of training. And then we did another cycle of that. And then and then at that point I was like, I don't think I'm going to get re-signed with Nike. So I'm like, they're so wonderful. And just like, it was really great to have that resource. But then I kind of reconnected with Milt, with Coach Milt to be like, hi. I was like, this is what I've been doing this fall. And like, what do you think? And he was really great. I feel like it honestly was perfect timing in terms of like, that was great for me this fall and building some good strength and endurance and getting, I don't know, just some benchmark metrics on stuff. And then it was Christmas and I was figuring out sponsor stuff in the new year. So I started working with him like right before Christmas. And it just is very much, he's like, let's just take it kind of as it comes. I'll write like a few weeks at a time, send me feedback. And it's like minor stuff, but it's like, I'm like, oh, I think I don't need to take this much rest. So like, let's adjust for next time. Or like these paces felt like X. So it's like, that is to me, it's just nice because it's all based on me and how I'm feeling and just trying to not push anything. Like we're really long-term approach. But that being said, I want to do an indoor 5K. I'm going to do the 10, but I'm kind of focused on just getting in a good rhythm instead of being like, I have to run this race. Because I think last year, especially with the trials, I just wasn't making smart decisions because I was like, I have to run the trials. So like everything I'm doing is based on that. And looking back, it's like, what did that get me? Yeah, I ran the trials. That's fine. But I was not in a place to be close to making that team. And it's like, I should have probably just taken care of my body and I would have been able to maybe race this fall. But instead I was like half racing all last year. And then the trials went so poorly. And then I take my break and get PRP. And then it like pushes me back that I'm like, I don't know. It's again, hindsight's 2020, but an Olympic year is also hard. You don't want to miss the trials. So yeah, I made the best decision I could with information at hand, I think.
Yeah, missing the trials would have felt so like off. Gosh, yeah, that is tough though. Like looking back, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have, but like you don't want to look back with regrets at all.
Yes.
Like I did what I knew to do at that time in my life with the information that I had.
Yes, totally. So I'm like, it is what it is. I'm like, I feel like I was upset about it for a little bit, mostly when I was like, oh, I wish I could be racing this fall and I just wasn't in a good place. But I'm also like, there's always more races. I'm like, that's a good thing about our sport. I'm like, sometimes you can't force the time. So right now I have races I want to do, but just mostly in my training scheme. I'm like, this is not the end all be all race. I know where I'm at fitness wise. I'm not going to be the fittest I've ever been shooting for the best time I've ever run, but like I'm getting fit and I'm like in a good place. I'm getting really consistent. We're going to see what that translates to, but not like this race or bust. Like I'm kind of like, this is my journey. I have races, but like, I'm like not forcing anything, at least in the next few months of like, this has to be X. And I feel like Brooks also is really supportive of that. Like, I think they want us to race, but I think they know how this works and they like they're very, I feel like talking with them about my plan and everything, just very supportive. So I'm excited. Yeah, going forward.
Yeah. You know, that's an interesting thing too, because I was just talking to Amanda Vestry yesterday and we talked about you a little bit. She was like,
she's so
like
sweet.
Fangirling you a little bit, which was super cute. Because, you know, like she's like Emily Infeld. She has like a world medal and is an Olympian.
Oh my God.
I know.
And she just ran 67.5. I'm like, what? I'm like, she's so good. I don't even think she realizes how good she is.
Yeah. Yeah. But she was talking about kind of what you're saying in the interview, just kind of like, I realized like I can't just like put all this pressure on one race.
Yeah.
Like I want to sign up and do all the races that I sign up for and like have fun with them and like race my heart out. But like I'm not going to put all my eggs in one race and like feel this like mounting pressure for this one race.
Yes, totally. And I think I'm like, I feel like the nature of this sport, it's like there are moments that like the trials and Olympics and USAs and worlds, like those tend to be, or like if you're training for a major marathon, like you are going to put a lot of pressure on those specific races.
Yeah.
But I think too, I'm like, I look back at myself in years where I just didn't do much racing and it was like, that was the end all be all. And sometimes it worked out really well and sometimes it didn't. And it's like, I think too, I'm like, yeah, it's great when it worked out well, but if it didn't, it felt pretty devastating. And it was like, great, that's all I did. And this is all I have to show for it. And I have years where I ran a lot of road stuff and like in the fall and different things. And I'm like, I think you can find so much happiness and like little success from all of that instead of being like, I'm only doing these 2 races and like, this is what it is. Because even like if they go well, I'm like, it's not, I don't know. I feel like you're just kind of like, like And after like in the Olympics in 2016, I feel like I really I didn't race much because I had a stress fracture in like I guess, end of the spring. And it's like the Olympics was fine. It wasn't like amazing, but it wasn't terrible. But I'm like, then I kind of shut my season down and I'm like, oh, whoa, that was like all year and all I really did was that. And like maybe if I would have medaled, I would have felt better, but maybe not. Yeah. Maybe I would have felt the same and I would have been like, oh, I didn't win or whatever. Like I think there's always a next thing. So just learning that and being like, there's so much more, like, yes, those big races are so important and it's amazing to compete and be part of those races on the world stage. But like there's success in so many races and just so many other avenues than just like a couple things.
Oh, for sure. And we all remember that 10K at the 2016 Olympics.
Yes,
like
it was wild.
Just like so crazy.
Yeah.
Hey friends, I want to tell you about Barilla Protein Plus Pasta and the Winter Energy Challenge with Strava. My family is a huge pasta family, and I was so excited about this partnership because we eat Barilla Protein Plus pasta all the time. I'm always looking for ways to get more protein into our diets, especially some of my super picky eater kids. And you can easily increase your protein intake with 17 grams of protein per 3.5 ounce servings of Barilla Protein Plus pasta. Actually, my kids request the protein pasta. They think it tastes better. I think it tastes the same. They think it tastes better though. This is the pasta taste you love with the energy you want. And it's made with 100% plant-based protein from lentil flour, pea protein, and chickpea flour, making it a good source of fiber as well. So go grab the yellow box of Barilla pasta next time you're in the grocery store. Put your energy to the test and take on Barilla's Protein Plus pastas. Winter Energy Challenge this February on the Strava Fitness app. It's free and all you need to do is simply complete 10 days of movement for your Barilla Protein Plus pasta reward. Terms and conditions apply. Sign up at strava.com. Back to the show. Is it weird, like looking back, like is Bowerman, do they even have a team anymore?
They do. I mean, I feel like I saw some of the girls like, I mean, Chris is still there.
Chris is still on the team.
Yeah. And like Kaylee, and Christina Aragon, and then they have a new girl who I don't really know. And now I'm blanking on her name, but I met her for like a hot second when they were all in town in December and she was very sweet. But still like Mo is there and Sean. And so they have some guys, but it's just different. But I don't know. I mean, it's funny because like when I first joined or moved out here, it was just Shalane and Kara were the only girls. And I was with them and Kara was there for a year and then left. So then it was Shalane and I until like Sammy Silva and Colleen and Courtney and Shelby joined. So I'm like.
And you guys were like the thing.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
You were like the hot group, like the Bowerman babes.
Yeah, I know. Well, we had like a crazy, like we all made the Olympics in 2016, which was wild. Like, yeah, like Amy, Shalane, Betsy, Colleen, Courtney, Shelby, and I. So I'm like, that was wild. But so then but it's hard. I'm like, I do think there's something, and I think about this with, just situations I've been a part of. I think sometimes when there's too many people, it's hard. Like, I think it's hard to feel like, you're doing what you need to do, like not like no one's fault, but I'm like, isn't there a rule where it's like you can only, like I feel like management like says like you can only manage like 7 or 8 people and like more than that it's like you just can't give full capacity attention. And I'm like, I do think there's something to be said about that. Like I think it's hard if there gets to be like 15 people in a group or 20. It's just like you can't be super individual. And I'm like, you just tend to, and not that there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, if it doesn't work for you and you're not fitting in the mold of maybe the majority of the group, then it kind of like, you're not getting the most out of yourself. And I feel that with like, just being in groups, I think there's a benefit to groups, but I'm also like, I don't feel like necessarily maybe I'm doing what I need to do. And sometimes it's nice to like, even though I'm like, Coach Milt obviously has a lot of people, like full capacity, I have like a little bit of wiggle room. Like he'll give me
separate from his other people though.
Yes. Yeah. And he'll give me like ranges of paces and ranges of rest. So it's like, I can listen to myself and be like, okay, I have like 75 to 90 seconds rest, but actually I only feel like I need 60. I'm just going to take 60. Or like, these are the paces. And like, he gave me this down to this. And like, maybe I just need to stay in the middle the whole time. And I'm like not on either end or like whatever it is, or I'm on this end or this end. And like listening to your body and being like, based on how you feel, like being cognizant of like what these paces should feel. And I think that's easier to do when you're by yourself versus if you're in a group. And like
everybody's like, we're sticking to this rest or whatever.
Yes. And having people pull you in either direction. If people are like, this is so easy. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like literally like feeling like I'm redlining, but I feel like I have to hang on. Or the opposite end where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is so easy, but like someone else is telling me to slow down. I like can't, I'm not going to not slow down when they're clearly struggling. So it's like, I think that's, and not that that happens all the time, but just like, it's easy when you're on your own. You're like, yeah, if I want to slow down, I can slow down. Or if I feel like I can press, I can press. And if I'm with Max, I'll like give him the paces for our double sessions. And he gets so mad because every time I do that, I have him lead the first rep and then I lead the second one. And I'm bound to be like way too fast. And then he's like, what pace are we doing? And I was like, well, I just wanted to feel it out. We're going to do this pace. And he's like, I thought you said this. And I was like, well, I told you I didn't know how I'd feel. So we're going to change it now.
You did an Instagram story the other day where you're like, we have this rule in my family that like I need to be fitter than Max.
Yeah.
Where are you at right now?
It's so funny. I mean, I felt like we were in a pretty comparable place, but we just did 2 Tuesdays ago, we did a hard workout and I just felt like he was like so geared up, gung ho for it. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I feel like I had been like the one pressing all these like double T sessions like in the afternoons. And all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, he's going out in like 32 on every rep. And I'm like, also like, I keep telling you to go slower. And I'm like, I was getting annoyed because he's like, I just feel so good. And it was like pissing me off because I was like, I'm not feeling that good. Like, this is for me.
This is
like,
my training.
Yes. Like you are pacing me.
I'm the professional athlete here.
Yes. But I was just like it was fine. I'm like, it was good. It was mostly, I was just like, gosh darn it. But he went on a boys ski trip this weekend. So I got in 18 miles. I did like 2 workouts on Friday and then a longer run. And he was just running 5K. So I'm like, hopefully I'm now, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I kind of got ahead of him. Hopefully.
You might've got ahead.
Yeah.
Do you have women to like train with at all in Portland that you meet up with?
Yeah. I mean, I meet up with Sinclair a lot when she's here. She's in Phoenix right now, but I feel like we've run together a bunch, which is so nice. And Carissa, if she's in town. Eleanor Fulton was here this fall, but she's in Buena Vista now. But then I have like a couple other girls, Nicole and Haley, like 2 friends I have who are both moms and like fabulous and working and all those things. So I'm like, I'll meet with them, but they normally go so early. So I'm like, if I can get my butt up early enough, I'll go run with them. But I would run with them.
Do you run with them like easy runs?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Not workouts. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I feel like, I mean, honestly, I've been running with Max so much and then mostly now like on my own. Like today I ran on my own this morning. And I feel like I don't know. I don't mind doing that. I'm like, if I have someone to help me for the workouts. But it was nice. I feel like Sinclair and I were linking up a lot on like Thursdays and Saturdays, which was really great. But then it's just like, she's not here and I'm here. So I'm like, when she's back, we'll link up again. But it's nice to have buddies for easy runs.
Oh, for sure. When you don't have a buddy, do you listen to music or a podcast?
No, I just go run.
You just go run.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about on Relay about you. We were talking about your love for like 90s rock, boy
emo,
like
pop,
like Fall Out Boy.
Yes.
And I was telling Peter, I was like, oh, that's the one thing for sure Emily and I aren't on the same page on. I do not like that kind of music.
Really?
But you're like, you love it. Like, what is it? Fall Out Boy, Blink 182.
Yeah, Blink 182. I mean, Jack's Mannequin is having their like 20th anniversary of Everything in Transit. So my little sister has been texting it to me. But I was like a Warped Tour girly. Like I did Warped Tour in high school. And like I've seen Blink 182 a bunch.
Who else? What are the other bands?
I'm like the
genre.
main, Panic at the Disco.
Oh yeah, I do kind of like some Panic at the Disco.
Yeah, The Killers I love. I love their.
I do
like that Hot Flush album is still. I'm like so good.
All these things I've been told. What is that?
Yes,
I like The Killers.
Yeah.
I do like The Killers.
Yeah.
Panic at the Disco, though. Do you know what's funny? The young kids like the Panic at the Disco now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like my 11-year-old and his friends listen to Panic at the Disco.
Whoa.
Isn't that weird? I was like,
so
wait, what?
funny.
Panic at the Disco? Really?
Yeah, but I feel like it's coming, like, that's when I feel like, oh man, it makes me feel old because I'm
back.
like, it's like coming full circle when I'm like, wait, how are we that old that like the like young kids are liking it?
Yeah. And my kids love Eminem and they like can't understand that like I listened to Eminem in high school.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That is so funny.
This is my music.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Emily, what are you like reading, watching, enjoying outside of running right now?
Yeah, I'm reading I've been into those fantasy series. So I read the ACOTAR. Did you read those?
Well, I feel like all the runner girls are into like the Fourth Wing and all that.
Yes. So I haven't read Fourth Wing, but I'm doing Throne of Glass, which is like the first novel series from the same person that did ACOTAR. But it's good. It's like just like I'm also the woman that wrote these books. Like this series, she wrote the first book when she was 17, which is like bonkers. I was like, what? But now she has 3 different series. The other one's Crescent City, which I haven't read, but I'm almost done with this Throne of Glass. I'm like doing a tandem read. So I'm reading 2, like you're supposed to read both of the books together. And then there's one more book. And then that series is done. But it's good. I honestly have not. I'm like, I read on the plane to San Diego and back, but I'm like mostly at night. I feel like we've been watching TV, which is like, I don't know. I'm like, we were watching British Bake Off and now we had to rewatch Severance because the new season came out. So we just watched episode 2 last night and now I'm like, oh, we have to wait till Friday. But like that show is so good to me. It's so messed up, but just addictive.
My husband's into that show. I haven't watched it with him and he's like, I don't think you'd like it, but it seems like everybody likes it.
It's really good, but it is kind of, I don't know. It's not like, I don't like horror stuff or scary, but it's kind of psychological and it's like a weird, like, I feel like you're like, what is this world? Like, is this like is this a futuristic thing? Like, is it, I don't know. It's like, you're kind of trying to figure out, you're like, is this on planet Earth? Is this a different planet? Like, is this
really? Okay. Maybe he knows me well. We have been married 16 years. Maybe he knows me well enough that I wouldn't like it.
Yeah. I think it's really good. It makes you think, but it's weird.
Okay. That does not sound good to me, but I've heard so many people rave about it.
Yeah, I really like it, but I'm like, I like it, but then we'll watch like a Good Place episode to palate cleanse.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, you need that.
Yeah.
This Throne of Glass and all these books that all the runner girls are talking about, I feel like every time I'm like, they're going to suggest this book. I'm just nervous to get started because I'm afraid I'll be so addicted that like I won't be able to get myself to do anything else.
Oh, no. It's so funny. I feel like the ACOTAR was more so I was like really into it, wanted to find out what was happening next. But this Throne of Glass, for whatever reason, I also think it started slower. But then I was like, oh, she wrote this when she was 17. So I'm like, when I did the ACOTAR, I was like, this is really good. And then this one, I was like, oh, this is like a little slower. I'm not like as obsessed with it or like page turning. Like I feel like I read a chapter at night and can fall asleep. Like I'm not like, I need to know what happens next.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, but like I loved Harry Potter and like that I couldn't put down. But even, I don't know. I'm like, I think it's really good, but I'm like, if you have a beach vacation, like it's a beach vacation book, I feel like if you want to be reading for hours or a long travel day. But my girlfriend, Natalie here is listening to them on Audible and she like, listens to them on the way to work and like when she picks up her kids and she's been doing like a mile a day running. So she'll listen to it on her run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So she's like doing like so she's like whipping through them and I'm reading. So I'm like, oh no, you're going to like, I was ahead of her. And now I'm like, she's going to be way ahead of me because I'm so much slower at reading. And she's like, she's like, oh, I'm doing it all these different things. I'm like, shoot, slow down. I'm like, me.
Yeah. You get car time, you get grocery shopping time.
Yes.
I prefer more like a biography or self-help on Audible though. Like a story like that I do want to read.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why. My brain is just
No, totally. I feel similar to you. I'm like, that's my Audible, but I also haven't been on Audible really. And I have like all these credits. I like canceled my subscription, but I like there's credits I need to use. And I'm like, shoot.
I had all these credits too and I canceled, But I was mostly listening, like I would listen for like interview prep and stuff. And like that was my source of like how I would get interview prep in if someone had written a book.
Oh, I love that. And that's like great. Like good for you to like, I don't know, pick out what you're going to read. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. What are you most excited about with this new season with Brooks and just like new season in life? Like you're going to stay on the track, but you're excited about the roads?
Yeah. I just, after last year, I just want a healthy year. I'm like, obviously I want to run well, but I love racing, but it was so demoralizing going into each race, just being like holding my breath. Like I probably am not going to feel good. Maybe I'll feel okay. And just trying to be like, I want to feel healthy and good and just like love this again and not feel like every race is like, I need to do something. And I like, no, I'm not where I need to be fitness or health wise. I'm just excited to feel healthy, to be like slowing down fitness. And like, I have a down week this week, which is so nice. I'm like, oh, I'm running 55 miles this week. And like Coach Milt's like, yeah, we need to put this in. You've had like 6 weeks of good training. Like we need to do this before you feel like you need it. And I'm like, thank you. Like I'm like, it's very refreshing to be like, oh yeah, like this is part of training. Like I don't just go from October until I die in the season. Like I need to like give myself a little downtime and reset. So that's refreshing, but just, excited to see with this new training, kind of how things are looking, but mostly just wanting to be, happy, healthy racing and getting some fast times on the track and hopefully doing a half or something this fall. So we'll see.
That's so exciting. Yeah. Oh, well, congratulations. We're so excited for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really stoked.
Hey friends, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks, Emily, for coming back on the show. Of course, you can follow Emily on Instagram. She's Emily Infeld over there. I'm Lindsay Hine 626. I'd love to see you over there on Instagram as well. I share a lot of my everyday life and things outside of the podcast and running as well, including motherhood, raising 4 boys, the books I'm loving, a little more inside scoop stuff over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you there. You can find more about this show and all the shows in our network at sandyboyproductions.com. Don't forget, we've got a great new show in our network called Finish Lines and Milestones, hosted by my friend Allie Bretnacker. She hosts everyday athletes over there, everyday runners, and has some people with some amazing, inspiring stories. I highly recommend checking out her podcast. Go ahead on over there and give it a little subscribe. And Allie and I are planning some events in this next year, so I hope that you will check out her show and give her some love. We also have the Trail Network podcast in the Sandy Boy Productions network, which is another amazing show hosted by 4 professional trail runners. These ladies are doing amazing work. Go check that one out. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next time on I'll Have Another with Lindsay Hine podcast.